is said to be outside the Pillars of Hercules. Okay? So if it's outside the Pillars of Hercules, and that's the Straits of Gibraltar, I mean, hopefully that's the correct interpretation. That means it's somewhere sailing out that way. What today is now going westwards. And then going in what direction exactly, it does not say. So you think about this, you got the Mediterranean world, which is all the lands that are surrounding that body of water, because it's an enclosed sea. It's quite large. In fact, it is the largest one in the world. And it's the cradle of the modern civilization, so to speak. I don't want to be Eurocentric in that sense, but I do see that it is mostly the influence on the modern civilization and the United States and the modern world. But what came before that? You have a lot of civilizations. China's always there, India, so on and so forth. But now you have this Atlantis, and it's out there. It's not in the Mediterranean, and it's not the North Africa, the Egyptian. It's out there. The description goes like sailing out beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and there was an island or two that are ruling over a whole continent. So that's like Britain ruled Britannia, and Britain had their fleets going out at the height of the colonial age, which I don't say is over. This is neo-colonial times. But when Britain was an island ruling, how many other continents? Think about it. So Atlantis was the same way, but apparently their islands was coinciding with the region, and there was a greater continent. So Plato describes the other continent as being quite large. He describes the island where the kingdom was, where the seat of power was, as being larger than Libya and Asia, which to him was the Middle East. He wasn't even including India or beyond the Himalayas into China. He wasn't including that. So if the Middle East and Arabia and Persia and Libya, which in his day was like all of northern Africa, possibly going all the way over to Morocco. So you got to look at the map for this type of thing. You got to check out your maps and see, what is the size of the land that he's actually describing. So he's actually describing something which it's an island that could be almost as big as Australia, which is considered a continent, and it's the largest island or the smallest continent. It's bigger than Britain. It's could be bigger than Greenland. Although the fact is that Greenland's a possibility. But again, going to the account, it says that it was destroyed by earthquake and it turned to mud. So a lot of it was dissolved away to the point where you couldn't navigate through that part of the world anymore. You could not navigate, you could not take a ship through there. The ship could not sail because there was so much debris from this broken up land, which was the seat of the Atlantean power. That was their land, their capital. It does not mean that the whole continent that they ruled over was destroyed. It doesn't. Now, this is what I'm saying, that the most likely thing here is that somewhere out in the Atlantic, there's remnants of those islands. Those large islands, there's remnants. Now, the remnants could be the Canary Islands, the remnants could be the Azores, the remnants could be even possibly Britain and Ireland. I'm not sure. The remnants could be Iceland, as I already said, Greenland, or a lot of the islands up there around in northern Canada. Or the islands could be in the Caribbean. You see a lot of islands there, and you see a lot of it's been broken up. There is a small tectonic plate there, and it's an active one. We just had a Haitian earthquake, right? That was just recently, and that this whole area has a lot of broken up islands, but obviously at one point they were all joined together, and they had land connecting it. That's sizable. Now, if that was situated there, it's a great place to rule over the whole Americas, as far as distance-wise. So this is huge amount of possibility of where the whole place was, the whole island that ruled over the Americas. So there's several assumptions that we have to make about solving this riddle, and the location of the Pillars of Hercules have to be the Straits of Gibraltar. And it's not just that sentence, because he goes on to describe that their world of the Athenian and the European and Egyptian at that time, their world is situated like the land encircling the sea, the Mediterranean. And it goes on to describe that area as more like a harbor or a bay, as opposed to where the Atlanteans were situated in a larger ocean, and then had a larger continent that was behind them, or on the other side, that the Athenians and the Egyptians were not involved with. And that place was before you get to a boundless ocean. So a boundless ocean he's talking about is, here's another assumption, that was the Pacific. Because we know that the Athenians, the Greeks, were not aware of that. They hadn't traveled that far to the east. And they had not gone to the west because they were being blocked by the Atlanteans. Now, the Atlanteans must have had that knowledge, because if they were there and ruled over a continent, and onto the other side of them was a boundless ocean, they probably knew what was around that way. They may have. But what happened was the war. The war directed their attention to the Mediterranean region. Plato describes it as being unprovoked and unjustified, and was an offensive move, a violent action of the Atlanteans. And so this was the heroism of the Athenian power of their military and their fighters to defend against the Atlanteans, and eventually to defeat them. So in the midst of the defeat, they all get killed anyhow, because the earth brings it all down. And it's not just the earth is a tool of the gods, and that's Zeus and Poseidon and so on and so forth, the way they divided up the powers of the godly force. They had a pantheism or a polytheism, which we also have today, but I'm not going